You're watching Wall Street Confidential on TheStreet.com TV, web TV, where we are not limited with what we discuss. And for some insight here now on the markets, Jim Cramer, welcome.
Pardon, how are you?
You were just here at the New York Stock Exchange on CNBC,
right,
where you have commercial breaks. And
well, you also have a lot of people want to jump in, so
right,
you can't necessarily, and that's fine, it's good TV. But at the same time, there'll be points you want to develop, and you know you can't do it.
Well, let's start with one point that you weren't able to really dive into as much as you'd like. Activist investors.
Right, there was a study that came out of Harvard which said you don't necessarily want to follow activist investors. They looked at 1,000 deals. They saw that if the deal doesn't get done, if an activist gets involved but no transaction occurs, you don't do well. I felt that that was not a perfect criteria. I go to Stock Picker every day, it's one of our sites, because I want to know who the good activists are. I mentioned that Icon is worth following. There's a half dozen activists that I follow, and they're not necessarily hostile activists like Atticus, where I see their names in Stock Picker and I say, wow, look at that. They did Freeport. They did Conoco. Maybe I should follow them. That's how I got Inverness Medical, which I featured last night on Mad Money. I got it from Stock Picker looking at Atticus. Atticus is not a hostile activist. They're a very constructive activist. So I think the study was flawed from the point of view of not looking at the good activists, which is why Stock Picker works so well.
Any other activist investors that people can find on Stock Picker and track their portfolios?
You know, I think this Third Point Capital is very mixed lately, but they identified these Metro PCS Leap Wireless. Now, they identified them early. The stocks then ran and they came down. But I think that another point that I would have led with here is that if you start with good companies that are undermanaged, you make money. That's what Carl Icahn's secret's been. If you start with bad companies that are undermanaged, it really doesn't matter whether you're an activist or not.
Now, I want to get to this in another video.
But you also have Target.
Yes. Another point you made on CNBC, very interesting, is the merger between XM Satellite Radio and SIRI, as you're calling this going to happen by the end of this year.
Look, let's give credit where credit's due. Frank Curzio, Stocks Under 10, did a video with me approximately a month ago. Sirius Satellite was at $2.80. It's now up to $3.40. What a run. And he was saying the time is right. We were very combative with each other because Sirius has been such a dog. Frank at that point said 10-cent downside, maybe $1 upside. It was a beautiful call. Frank has made some fabulous calls, including Sun Micro, by the way, $5 to $5.80. That was a cribbing of Stocks Under 10. Now, I had some heat the other day. Someone was saying they bought Real Money, the book, and I said go to Stocks Under 10, and the guy came back and said to me, it's a paid site. That's ridiculous. If you bought Sun Micro at $5 and it went to $5.80, if you bought Sirius Satellite at $2.80 and it went to $3.40, funny thing about paying for a subscription site, it tends to pay for itself. So
right now is a good time to get into those stocks?
I think that Frank had said that there's maybe that this deal closes to year end. If you look at the economics of the Sirius XM deal, oh my God, you go from being unprofitable to profitable like that. Anybody who's got that kind of leverage, I got to be in.
All right, thanks so much, Jim Cramer, on Wall Street Confidential, not CNBC.
Right.
I'm Farnoosh Torabi. Stay tuned for more.